In this section, we will learn more about developing a rigorous curriculum to drive increased student achievement. This will help you as you're planning those learning experiences during the curriculum development process. This also aligns with the district improvement plan of high expectations for all students. So one of the things that we look at, we have to really understand what is rigor. And as a district, we're looking at rigor is helping students develop the capacity to understand challenging material. It is the work and activities that challenge the students to think critically. And this is where rigor gets a little difficult, because it's not a clear-cut answer of what is rigor, because what is rigor for one student might look a little different for what it looks like for another student, because it's all about challenging material for the student, or those activities that we ask the students to do, and the challenge might be different for the different students that we have in the classroom. So one of the things that we look at is why are we talking about rigor? Why are we looking at rigor? Why are we considering this as we are teaching and we're developing a curriculum? And we kind of go back to the research and what the research has said on this. So this is research that was done on the Hecknicker report of 2010, and so they found that in 2005 nearly half of high school graduates who received an A or B in Algebra 2 were not ready for college math, and then more than half who earned an A or B in physics were not ready for college science. 30% of high school students need to take a remedial math or English in college. So this is telling us that what we're doing in the classroom is not effectively preparing our students to be successful once they get to college. And that's why we go back and we look at rigor and say, are we developing enough rigor so that students will be successful when they go on to that next level? So, our district goal is to increase student achievement and close the achievement gap. This is goal 3 for Worthington School District. And one of the things that we look at, you go and you look at the results of those standardized tests, and they do not always correlate with the grades the students are receiving in our classes. So the students can pass a test, but the students really understand what the students have learned. When there is not a correlation between standardized test scores and grades, a lot of research indicates that this goes back and shows that the students really don't understand. And further research really says that research in this area, that when this happens, it's because there's not enough rigor in the classroom. We're giving the students the information, but they're not really understanding that information. And then even if the students have an A or B in our class and then are not successful on a standardized test, it's kind of coming back and saying, it's like, yeah, they're getting an A or B in our class, but is there enough rigor to challenge the students so that they can do these standardized tests? And likewise, when they go on to college, do we have enough rigor built in to effectively prepare them for college? So this is the reason that we're going back and we are really looking at the rigor. So when you go back and you start looking at this again, so some further research that was done is, so what is really happening in the average classroom? So they went around, and this, as you can see, is from the Centers for Quality Teaching and Learning. They went in and observed classrooms and talk to teachers about how they teach and those types of things, and what they're seeing. So this is what this chart is saying, is like, about 4% actually have clear learning goals or objectives for their classes and for their individual lessons. 52% of the time, teachers were giving worksheets. 31% of the time, teachers were lecturing. And so going through this process of showing what's actually happening inside the classroom. And so then this is really interesting when you kind of take a look at this, because you can see that the average classroom students are completing a lot of worksheets. They listen to a lot of lectures, but they're not engaged in learning. So if this is what is happening in the average classroom, is this really translating to student success? And then if you go back to the previous slides that we were looking at, it's showing that it's not. And that's why we want to go back and take a look at rigor and what we can do in the classroom with our rigor to change some of these conversations. But we have to come back and we have to think about, but why is this happening? Why are we teaching this information? The students just aren't getting it, or we don't have enough rigor that's built in. And it is what's referred to as the cycle of low achievement. So what happens at the classroom level, as teachers, we always want our students to be successful, and we're doing what we think is best for our students so our students can be successful. So what we see is if we give a test or even a formative assessment and there's poor results, so we said, oh, it's too challenging, I have to do some things differently to make sure that my students can be successful and get good grades. So typically what happens is we tend to lower our expectations. And then when we start lowering our expectations, we have less challenging courses overall for our students. And then when we have those less challenging courses, we have low-level assignments, and at times we have lower level instruction that's taking place just to make sure that our students can get this information and be successful. And then it just kind of cycles back around again that we have poor test results. And then when you have those poor standardized test results, we just continue to go through this cycle because we just continue to lower things, because as a teacher, we want to do what's best for our students. So if students aren't successful on something, we start bringing it down a little bit so that our students can be successful. But what we're doing is we just keep on lowering our expectations, and then the students aren't able to achieve at those high levels when it comes to those standardized tests, and then when it comes to some of our students who go on to college. So as we start looking at this, a lot of research has been done on this, and there are a couple of myths that have really come about with assessments. So rigor is not just giving the students more homework. Some people think that if I give the students more homework, it's more challenging for them, and that's not really what it is, because if it is homework but it's not challenging the students, that's not really providing that rigor. Rigor is having the students do more work. Again, the same thing. If we have a lot of low-level work that the students are doing, just having them do more of it doesn't mean that it's rigorous. Rigor is not for everyone, and students can't handle the material. So again, that goes into that cycle of low achievement that we were just looking at. Rigor is when I provide less support to students. So we have some that think that, well, I'm going to give the students something to do, and I'm just going to have them do it all on their own and not give them any support, and that makes it more challenging. But we have the students who need those extra supports, and different students will get different levels of support, but we do still need to provide supports for our students. And the fifth most common myth about rigor is just having more resources. If we have a reading, and then if you have an activity that you're doing, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to have the kids look at these 5 different resources and then analyze it, and that's just going to be rigorous. But again, it goes into the material that they're actually reading or analyzing. If it's at that lower level, it's not challenging the students, and it doesn't mean it necessarily has the rigor that's built in. So these are the 5 most common myths about rigor, and so I just kind of wanted to address those so that we're kind of aware of these things, and as we're going through and we're doing some of these things, making sure that we're not doing this ourselves as well. So, Barbara Blackburn said that there's a belief that the only way to assure success for everyone is to lower the standards and lessen rigor. Such beliefs often mask an underlying sense that some students are less capable, and that then their success will hold those back who are more capable. So again, when we lower standards and lessen the rigor for some of our students because we want our students to be successful, what we are actually doing is inadvertently increasing the achievement or opportunity gap for our students. So we're gonna kind of take a little closer look at this, and in the next section, we're going to take a look at what does rigor actually look like in the classroom.